What's up, guys, and welcome to QnA. I am Quincy Carrier, and this is the show where I take your questions from YouTube and answer them here in video format. And we're going to just jump right into it today with a question from Mr. Clean Saudi Face, who says, do you think we could land both J.J. Watt and Richard Sherman on rather cheap veteran deals? Do you think signing them will help the development of Myles, Greedy, and Denzel? Well, Greedy's the only guy you're worried about developing, right? Denzel's going to be as good as he's going to be. Myles is pretty much, he's developed at this point. He could develop more consistency, but he's developed. He's not going to learn some more things from J.J. Watt, nor is J.J. Watt going to try to teach him new things. Same thing with Richard Sherman and Denzel Ward, even though there's always things you can learn, little small things. But as far as overall development goes, probably not going to be impactful there. But where it could be impactful, again, is with J.J. Watt's versatility, right? You could put him inside. You could put him outside. You can put him standing up at times. Like, you can do a lot of things with J.J. Watt. And where that's going to be valuable is not only with getting him help. When I say him, I'm talking about Myles Garrett, but also by being able to take more snaps without Myles on the field so Myles can get rest. Again, pass rushers need to be kept fresh, and you can kind of work a rotation in more efficiently if you have a second pass rusher who can play inside and out, because you don't have to be, held to just it's Porter Gustin or Adrian Claiborne coming in relief of Myles Garrett or J.J. Watt. Now you can have Myles Garrett out, J.J. Watt as the primary edge rusher, and maybe that just you supplement that with defensive tackles that you'll be moving around because maybe you play J.J. Watt more inside mainly. Like, there's a lot of differences that you can do and a lot of adjustments that you can do with J.J. Watt out there that will help Myles Garrett. And as far as Richard Sherman and Denzel Ward, I don't know how much it's going to help Denzel Ward because cornerback is such a one-on-one position. It's kind of hard to be overloaded at the DB position because you're just guarding one guy at a time. So it's just going to help the secondary overall, but I don't think it's going to help Denzel necessarily. The next question comes from Chris Dharma, who says, the Browns have the most picks in the AFC North. While adding depth in the draft is nice, do we really need 9 more rookies on the roster built to win now? Or would it make more sense to use some of those picks to go for vets on rebuilding teams or teams in a cap crunch to help fill position needs now? This is going to be a huge storyline throughout the offseason. I expect the Browns to do this. A ton of teams are going to be in cap trouble, or they're going to sign themselves into cap trouble in free agency. So come draft time, there are going to be a lot of teams that are going to be looking at a lot of older veteran players and kind of doing the math and saying, no, we don't want you. We'll replace you in the draft. The Browns are going to be in the opportunity to take advantage of that, right? When Calais Campbell goes for a 5th-round pick, the Ravens have been there to take advantage of that. Now the Browns are in position to take advantage of that because the reality is 9 rookies are not going to make this roster if it's 53 men. You're talking about a large chunk of the roster being rookies. And this team, there's not 9 roster spots available, and there's definitely not 9 starting spots available. So what the Browns are going to do is they're going to bundle a lot of these picks and either turn them into picks in later year drafts, or they're going to turn them into veteran players, because that would make sense. You have 2 3rd-round picks, you have 2 5th-round picks, 6th, 7th, 8th round. You have all of these multiple picks in later rounds. I think the Browns are going to start to bundle those things together to maybe hop ahead in a round for next year's draft, or to get veteran players birds in hand this season, because that's what they need to do. And it's going to be real interesting to see who's going to be coming available, because I think right now we have no idea just how many players are going to become available in the offseason, but we'll see. Next question comes from Rex Fortune, who says, with the Saints being in cap trouble, would you inquire about Marshon Lattimore or Cameron Jordan? The lowest I could see is like a 1st and a 3rd, but realistically costs more. I mean, Marshon Lattimore, it's not really realistic that they're going to go for Marshon Lattimore. The need is there somewhat for the other corner part spot, but it's just not that drastic that you need to get somebody like a Marshon. You would go with Marshon Lattimore if maybe like Terrence Mitchell was your best corner and you needed a true number 1. You got Denzel Ward, so the need's not drastic to get another number 1 corner, and the cap space isn't going to be there long term. Cam Jordan, though, That's going to be interesting. Again, another thing with Marshon Lattimore, he's young, so the Saints are going to more likely want to keep him. Cam Jordan, while he's a legend in New Orleans, he's getting older. Now, he's expensive and he's older. Might be a good recipe. Again, any defensive line player of any note is going to be on the Browns' radar, I think, this year. Next question comes from Troy, who says, hey, Q, do you believe Grant Delpit healing up, or do you believe he can do good things for secondary of this team, or because of his injury, might he be a bust? That's a tough thing. And the thing with Grant Delpit, right, I don't want to predict whether he's going to be back to being Grant Delpit or not, because that's impossible to predict. The issue with Grant Delpit and the issue the Browns have right now is that even if Grant Delpit comes back to being who he was before the injury, you have the question of, one, how that's going to translate to the NFL because he hasn't played an NFL snap, and two, when will he be ready? And when will you have to notice that he will be ready, right? Because he tore this thing in August. It's normally a 12-month recovery time, which means you're not going to know till late August, which is way too close to the start of the season to know on this, right? If this were like an ACL tear, you would know by like May if he's going to be back for training camp. The fact is, you're not even going to know for the bulk of training camp, and he's not going to take a ton of snaps in training camp. So the Browns are in this really peculiar situation to where, like, it's not about whether Grant Delpit's going to be a bust or not. It's just about whether they are going to have the security of knowing if Grant Delpit's going to be healthy enough to play this year. And that's going to be the question, right? They're not even going to have the opportunity to find out before they have to make a decision on that position. So that's going to be the more interesting thing when it comes to Grant Delpit. The next question comes from Noah Meyer. It says, hey, Q, I know you've talked about the Browns Super Bowl window being the next 2 years, but can you explain why that is with our young core of players and a young coach and a franchise quarterback, not even in his prime? Why can't it be more than 2 years? When I say their Super Bowl window is the next 2 years, I'm not saying the Browns are incapable of winning a Super Bowl unless they do it in the next 2 years. I'm saying that they're going to be uniquely positioned to be the best team that they can possibly be for these next 2 years, barring like Baker Mayfield taking $15 million a year or something ridiculously low like that. And that is because of the cap. One, you're going to run into cap issues regardless because of what happened this year, how the cap's lowered, and we don't know if it's going to continue to lower. And even if it does, it's going to take a while to get back to where it was. Yes, you have young players, but also consider wide receivers, that timetable comes quick, right? Jarvis Landry, in the next 2 years, he's going to be almost 30 or at 30. Same thing with Odell Beckham, is going to be like close to 30. Nick Chubb will be like 28, 29, which is starting to hit that line for running back. Same thing with Kareem Hunt. So, yes, they will still have a young quarterback. They will still have a young coach. But a lot of this young core, that's where things get a lot more uncertain with the team. Offensive line, right? Who knows how you're going to be able to retain all of these offensive linemen once Baker gets off his rookie deal. Same thing goes for the other side of the ball. So, yeah, that's why the Super Bowl window is these next 2 years. This is the best opportunity for the Browns, right? These next 2 years are. They could win one down the line, right? Eli Manning won a couple of Super Bowls outside of his rookie deal. So you can win one down the line. It's just right now, you know, you're in your best position to do so. You're going to have your best team possible to do so. That's what I mean by Super Bowl window. The next question comes from King Cam, who says, any unrealistic pipe dream players that the Browns could trade for or sign this offseason? Levante David is the biggest pipe dream I've seen, right? They're not going to spend that money on a linebacker. Next question comes from Josh Weeks, who says, love your show. What do you think of pursuing a defensive tackle for the Saints? Everybody's trying to poach the Saints, but their cap situation, he's likely to be available. Nose tackles don't seem to be prevalent anymore, but he seems like a fit for Joe Woods. It is a tremendous run. Thanks, Josh, from Okinawa, Japan. Shout out to Okinawa, Japan. I don't think they'll go after a guy who's a nose tackle. They don't really have a need for a nose tackle, especially since they already signed Andrew Billings, who they expect to kind of fill that role. The Browns are going to be looking for bigger tackles than like Larry Ogunjobi, or at least better performing against the run tackles than Larry Ogunjobi. I don't think they're going to be looking for guys who are going to be specifically nose. And if they were going to do that, you can get cheaper options in the offseason, like a Mike Daniels or somebody like that who can be a bigger body that you can put in there against against the run. Next question comes from the Ultimate Sports TV, who says, is Baker better than Lamar? I personally think so. We all know Lamar has consistent bad habits when throwing the ball. I think Lamar's running ability dazzles everybody. People love his dazzle when Baker is clearly better at being an actual quarterback and passer. Okay, so here's where I will agree and where I will disagree with what you said. I agree that Baker is a much better passer than Lamar is right now. Like, that is, I think, indisputable at this point. Baker is a better passer. But being a quarterback nowadays isn't just about your ability to pass. It's about your ability to affect the game. We want to give quarterbacks this kind of aura of a player that can affect wins and losses. We have to judge them on their ability to affect wins and losses. And while Baker has a tremendous ability to affect wins and losses with his passing ability, Lamar, while not being the passer that Baker Mayfield is, I do believe Baker Mayfield's probably like top 8 passer in the NFL right now. He still is a top 15 passer and a top tier runner. So when you talk about the amount of ways that Lamar can affect the game, I still think there's an argument there to say that Lamar can affect more games, wins or losses, than Baker Mayfield can right now. Now, if Baker Mayfield steps up, has like a 4,000 yard plus season, 40 touchdowns, then we're talking about his ability as a passer being so much better that it kind of overtakes Lamar's ability as a runner. But right now, yes, Baker is a much better passer than Lamar Jackson. It's just Lamar is such a better runner than Baker Mayfield that it either keeps them even or gives a slight edge to Lamar Jackson. Again, we gotta give respect to Lamar Jackson. He did win the MVP not too long ago. So while I agree with half of what you're saying, I disagree with the other half. I do think if we're talking about quarterbacks as their ability to affect wins and losses, you have to say Lamar has a better ability to affect wins and losses. Now, if we want to talk about clutch quarterbacking, ability to close as a quarterback, those are all things that lean in Baker Mayfield's direction. But if we want to talk about ability to affect wins and losses overall, I find it hard to give that to Baker Mayfield at this point. I think it can happen later on, but not at this point. This question comes from Jazir Stovall, who says, which free agents should we strongly pursue? I'm not going to answer with anybody because I don't think the free agents that the Browns should strongly pursue are available yet. I think we're going to have to wait to see who's available, because there's going to be a ton of cap casualties this offseason. And once we know that, we'll know who the Browns should attack, because I think the free agent that the Browns need to go for is probably on somebody's roster right now. Next question comes from Jacob, who says, do you think the Browns should trade up in the draft to get better players than we can at 26? If so, which team should we trade up with? I'm going to reverse the question onto you guys. Who's good enough for the Browns to trade up for? Like, who's good enough on defense? Because I think that's who we're guessing that the Browns would have to get, right? We have pretty much everything on offense. So who's good enough on defense for the Browns to trade up for the Browns to trade future assets for? Who is that player? Is it Patrick Surtain? I like him a lot, but I don't think he's that good to trade up assets for. Is it Barrymore? I like him a lot, but, I see a lot of the same issues with Larry Ogunjobi happening with him, so I don't know if you would trade up for that. A lot of guys that I would take if they fell to the Browns, but not a lot of guys that I would take if, the Browns need to trade up to get them. So I want to pass that question off to you guys. Who do you think in this draft right now is good enough defensively to justify the Browns trading up for? I know a lot of people might say linebacker. I don't think they're going to draft a linebacker, and definitely not trade up for a linebacker in the first round, just because it wouldn't make sense given how they don't really think linebackers should be paid a ton of money in this front office. So that being said, who do you guys think the Browns would trade up for or would justify a trade up on the defensive side of the ball for the Cleveland Browns? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Again, guys, thank you for asking the questions. Have a great day. Have a good night.